Hello, my name is Hamlet Dobbins, and this is Memphis Material, an oral history project chronicling the stories of the visual arts in Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis Material is a podcast celebrating the personal histories, the intimate stories, and the studio practices of some of the people who help shape the creative landscape of our city. These unedited interviews are all recorded at the Memphis Listening Lab, an archival gem located in the majestic Crosstown Concourse in beautiful Midtown Memphis. Now, the website for Memphis Material was designed by the wonderful Brian Dixon. Today's interview was the second of two interviews that I did with Nancy Cheairs. This interview was recorded on September 26th, 2025. Now, we don't have sponsors, but if we did, today's episode would be sponsored by good friends who are there when you really need them. When I came back from Rome, I was sort of unmoored and was at a loss for what to do with my life. And I am very thankful that Nancy was there for me, and that Flicker Street Studios was also there for me. Flicker Street provided a community for me that was so important and so critical and crucial to my recuperation, to my reconfiguring of my life. And I'm so thankful to Nancy for that. Now, again, this episode with Nancy Cheairs was recorded on September 26th, 2025. Enjoy the interview. Okay, you ready?
It's as much as I'll ever press record. Or don't press record.
Actually, Nancy, I pressed it like 10 minutes ago.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it's called the Nancy Cheairs rule.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, like, the moment we walk in the door, I hit it.
Hit it.
It's
okay.
like, I mean, it really is. And it's so funny because somewhere out there is footage of me explaining that to like 60 people and being like, okay, this is called the Nancy Cheairs rule. And I just press it and then I tell them the story about, how we recorded like an hour. Okay, today is Friday, September 26th with part 2 with Nancy Cheairs. Okay, Nancy, so I listened to it this morning, and I think we got up to when you finished at MCA, when you had your thesis presentation where you showed the slides and you said, and then I did this one, and then I did this one.
That's right.
Now, I mean, before we get into the stuff, on your way home last time, did you think to yourself, I can't believe I didn't mention so-and-so, or, what? I forgot, blank, blank, blank.
I can't remember. It's been so long.
I know.
You know.
Hang on. Usually people will text me and they'll be like, okay, I totally forgot blank, blank. Let me see if you texted me anything. Okay.
No, I think I was just ready for our interview to be over.
Yeah, at the end it was like, are we done?
Are we done?
Yeah. Okay, so talk to me. What happens after MCA, or what was that graduation being done like?
Well, let's see. I got married right away. Well, in August. So I guess I graduated in May, got married, and kept on painting. And, I worked at a bookstore. I worked at a dress shop. I still had my, trio of jobs. I think I had quit working at Zenny's. Did I tell you I worked at Zenny? Oh, while I was in art school?
Yeah. No, you didn't tell me.
Oh. Well, I kind of put myself through art school by working at a Tallulah's dress shop, the Blue and Gray bookstore, which is gone now, but it was on Walker. And I was a waitress at Zenny's at night and exhausted. And I was a terrible waitress at Zenny's. It was the worst place for me. So,
and then Tallulah's, was that right across from Davis Kidd? Or I guess that probably wasn't there.
No, it was in Overton Square, across the street on the same side of the street as Fridays.
Okay.
Across the street from Bombay Bicycle Club. Worked there Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, or afternoon. Then Zenny's later, and on Sunday. And then the bookstore Saturday day, And I remember getting married, and I just said, can I take the day off to get married? So, yeah, pretty much kind of supported myself and put myself through
Now,
MCA.
was Zinni's sort of the...
It was Smoky Dive.
But was it, I mean, if I remember right, I mean, I know the P&H sort of had the reputation as being sort of like the artist, the actors dive place. Was Zinni sort of a similar feel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
Were there a bunch of artists hanging out in there?
Yeah. John McIntyre and Bob Reisling, and just kind of the late night after 3 till 3 a.m. A lot of cigarettes, a lot of drunk, a lot of beer, a lot of hamburgers.
Now, was that, I mean, that was when John McIntyre was teaching at MCA?
At MCA.
Yeah, and so you would like bump into
him.
To these guys sort of late at night, and then you'd bump into them later the next day.
Yeah.
So you had this sort of trio of jobs, and then you ended up getting married, and you said you kind of kept painting. What was your studio situation like? Was it just there at the house?
It was, yeah, we had like a back house apartment, and I did more drawing, because of it. We had one room and a bedroom upstairs and a little kitchen. So mostly drawing, and then we moved to where I live now. And I had a studio upstairs. I meant to measure it because I painted 2 full shows in this little room, and it might have been 8 by 10. I mean, with one light bulb on the ceiling. But it does have windows north, east, and south.
Wow.
6 windows. It's like a little sunroom upstairs. And I just kept on painting,
It sounds like that room was sort of like a little ideal sort of getaway. I mean, not like a getaway, but like a little, like an oasis. I mean, or like a sunroom.
It is.
Yeah.
And it is now. So,
now, when you made the shift from school to being out in the domestic world, I mean, for me, that was a really difficult transition. I mean, I really floundered during that first couple of years out of undergrad. How about for you? Was it a time when you just kind of kept working?
I just kept working. And it's just something I knew that I wanted to do, that I needed to do, that I had to do. And I just kept working. And, the paintings changed throughout that time. I was working a lot on gessoed paper, budget constraints, and then I called Alice Bingham to come over. She had the gallery. I mean, I just called her up and said, will you want to come over and look at my work? And so I showed her the work. And
now, had you had any interactions with her in the past?
No.
Okay.
I just said, what do artists do around here? Well, here's a gallery. And called her up.
Wow. Now, but had you been to the gallery? Or I'm sorry, question mark.
I don't think I had.
You hadn't even been to the gallery? You just called her on the phone and invited her over?
Uh-huh.
That's interesting. And she came?
And she came. And she said, it was a big, massive rejection. And she said, I need to sell these things. And I said, well, I'm not going to paint to sell. And so I didn't know what she meant, but I was just painting, from my gut and my head and my heart. And so she left, and I didn't feel too rejected. I just, that didn't work out. And then she called and wanted me to be in a group show. And it was called Fresh Art. So young artists so I guess she had a change of heart or something. And let's see. I was in that show. and I sold a painting to my mom.
The target audience, the ideal audience anyway. Yeah.
And then to my sister-in-law. So the family stepped in and rallied. And then Alice asked me if I wanted to have a show. And I said, sure.
Did she also ask you how many other family members you had to be able to buy paintings? Because, I mean, the only people that had bought them were family members. Was she...
But they were cheap, too.
Okay.
You know, they're like $150, $200.
Now, talk to me a little bit about what the paintings look like. And I know it's like that horrible question of asking you to describe the work.
What did they look like?
Yeah.
It's hard to describe them. They were figurative, but more abstract, very gestural. We still had the trees and a lot of like little confetti things in the sky, and mothers with their hair standing straight up with the little rugrats running around out in the landscape, you know, just that, but colorful, and I did quite a bit of that for a while.
And then, but when she was looking at them, she did not think that they would be a thing that would be commercially viable?
These were different than what I had showed her, but what I showed her were, they weren't as broken up and abstracted. They were more solid planes, but it still had the figure in a tree. You know, and I look at some of them now, and it's like, well, I'm still kind of doing the same thing. Do you ever feel like you're painting the same painting in different reiterations over and over? I remember talking to Vita, and she was like, I don't want to keep painting the same painting. I said, well, that's who you are, and they're different. And they just cycle or something. And it's, so she must have seen something. I think she started out mostly as a print gallery kind of. And, but, you know, she offered me a...
Where was it located?
It was located, remember where Bari used to be? In that brick building? It was there. Okay.
So, again, sort of centralized right there on Overton Square.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a great place.
And who do you remember who else was in this Fresh Art show with you? I mean, I know it was a long time ago.
Yeah, I think Lisa Rivas, and I can't remember if John Ryan. I can't really remember. It was long, 80, you know, in the 80s.
And then what do you remember about, I mean, because that was also a time, I mean, when you have your first show in the city, talk to me a little bit about what was that show like for you, that experience?
I didn't really have an idea of what an art opening was like. And so I was ready to go home early. It was more like a cocktail party, you know, and I thought it would be more smaller and people kind of engaged and talking, and like we were in art school, you know, with my buddies. But it was a different vibe, and I remember tapping my toe and, you know, going, I'm ready to go home. And, you know, one of my friends says, look, you're acting like your dad. Just calm down. So, but I got used to it. You know, it was just kind of jarring. Did you feel that way?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Like, what?
Well, I mean, I'd been to a million art openings, but for sure there was a different kind of vulnerability for me when I have shows. I mean, it really is like I'm kind of on parade or on display.
Yeah.
And so it definitely feels a little strange.
Yeah,
It feels
people
vulnerable.
want to talk, come up and talk to you.
Right.
I mean, I love people, and I like to talk, but it was just a little, that's being on display kind of. And it's such a different, let's say you have 2 years of working alone, thinking, painting, all these millions of decisions that you're making, but you're not talking to anybody. And then all of a sudden, you're in this other kind of like an alien, a different world.
And I remember you were saying that you were talking with Burton Callicott at some point about selling things and about, how you were sort of reluctant, or not reluctant, but you just didn't understand how that would be possible. Obviously, that changes, when you're out there in the world and you're working 3 jobs and you have to pay for things. Was there a shift that happened in your brain in terms of being more okay with the commercial aspect of making things?
I just told myself it's better than having them be up under the bed or up in the attic. It's get them in the world, because kind of set them free a little bit. I don't know, but that's kind of what. And then Burton was like, "Oh, I'm glad to sell." Like, what are you talking about? So
no, so then she said, well, you had these 2 sales. Now, do you want to do a show? How much time did you have to prep? And then how was your brain in terms of getting ready to do the show?
I can't remember how much time I had to prep, but I do know I was juggling small children. And so I set myself up on a pretty rigid schedule. Like, okay, they go to pre-K from 8 to 11. That's when I paint. Come home, have lunch, take a nap. 1 to 3. That's when I paint. 3 in the afternoon, go for walks, go to the park, cook dinner. I didn't really work at night. So, and that kind of kept progressing when they went to school, carpool, home at 3, I paint. Because you never know what's going to happen. Like strep throat, broken collarbones, all the things that happen in life. So, when you have that opportunity, you got to take it. And I remember, though, there was a real shift between that first show and my solo show. And one of the things that happened is I was on the floor playing Legos with my son, and I had stained glass windows in my living room, and the light was hitting the floor, the colored diamond-shaped light, and he kept trying to pick up the light and put it on the material thing. And all of something really shifted in my brain and my spirit, and I could see that the spiritual world, or the intangible, was just as tangible as something you can hold. And so I was also painting one day. My paint was more thick, and a friend called, and they were in distress, and I had put down a coat, and I ended up talking her down from a ledge, So I went back, and the paint had kind of hardened up, and I started hitting it, and it created this beautiful glaze, and I hadn't done any glazes before. And I went, oh. And so that stepped me into that kind of transparent, sort of intense, lit from within color. And those 2 things kind of were the basis of, I guess, my technique and my thought about the work. And I painted, I mean, really big paintings in that little room. And I would put them in the hallway, you know, when I got them finished. And so I had that show, and the Brooks collected one out of the first show. And I sold all my paintings, and it was curious to me because I was not expecting that level of success. I mean, I guess, you know, success or acceptance, or I don't know how to kind of say it, but
Well, I mean, for me, one of the things